Movies can have a lasting impression on you and bring back great memories. Certain images you will always remember. Things that have been with me all my life and keep getting added to with every movie I see.
I will turn this place into the fucking Wild Bunch if I think you are fucking with me.
E.T. from home.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome to My Cellular Heart Podcast, Season 4, Episode 129. We're getting up to 200, Chip. I mean, we're far away. 70.
That we're much closer than we were before.
That is true. There will be spoilers. We take two movies over 2 weeks, put them together over one topic or theme, and we do that. So there you go. But you can listen to whichever one you want. But before this, we did Smokey and the Bandit 2. Sequels is the name of our show today. And this is part 2, and it's Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 2.
Sequel of all sequels.
Yes, the best sequel ever. Just under that is Lethal Weapon 2.
Yeah.
So I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I'm here with
His cousin Chip. Hello,
Yay!
everyone.
Hello.
He's taking a drink of his coffee. He's got to prepare.
Sorry about that. I did want to say that I finally found the movie. Everybody, if you've been watching my Instagram, so my friend Joe Weedman and I went to the movie theater 30 years ago, saw a movie, and then we got out of the movie. We're like, that was funny, that little line. And ever since then, we've been like, what movie was that line in where the guy pulls the clip out, looks, he's got one bullet, puts it back in the gun, and he's like, turns to the girl next to him and says, maybe we can get him to stand in a line. So we're like, that was funny. And it was,
you've mentioned this, I think, over
a couple episodes. And so I'm like, what is it? And I even check, like, is it Deal of the Century, with Gregory Hines and Chevy Chase? Is it Best Defense? They got guns in there, and it's Dudley Moore and Eddie Murphy. And I'm like, what is it? And I knew it wasn't Rambo 3. That was where he says, I guess surrounding him's out, because it's just him and Richard Crenna in a waiting. And so the other day, my buddies over there at Brothers in Armchairs podcast did a 30th anniversary of a movie called Free Jack. You might remember, with Emilio Estevez, Rene Russo, and Anthony Hopkins and Mick Jagger. So they did a 30th anniversary. Mick Jagger's like a bad guy. He's after Emilio Estevez. And so they're doing this little short, 30th anniversary thing. And so they're like, if you want to watch it, it's on HBOMax. And I'm like, wow, I haven't seen that since I saw it in the theater, but okay. I would normally not watch it, not rewatch it, because I remember it was horrible, but I remember I kind of liked it because it was time travel. So I'm like, okay. So I watch it. It gets to the end. They're on an elevator coming down to the lobby. Bad guys are still waiting for them, even though they've cleared everything upstairs. As they get down, the elevators, they're almost down, and he pulls his gun out, looks at the bullet. There's one bullet. He turns to her and he goes, maybe we can get them all to stand in a line. And I'm like, holy shit, like, that was it. So I fucking rewind it a little bit. I record it. I send it to my friend Joe, who him and I saw the movie in the theater in 92. And I was like, look, I found it. He goes, yeah, it only took you forever. I was like, yeah, exactly. So I sent those guys a thing. I was like, oh my God, I totally found it. So thank you. So yeah.
You found your Sasquatch.
Yeah, exactly.
You got your white whale.
That's right. And we have no corrections from last week's show. Do you want to say anything, Chip, before we get on with the show?
That's crazy. No corrections whatsoever.
No corrections, other than one that I'll make later. I'll make it now. It's not really a correction. I'll just say it. I'm not going to put the wrong. But Ricardo Montalban's chest, it's his real chest. It's not a prosthetic.
I was watching. I was like, this doesn't look like when he did like a little flex.
Yeah, he did that. He did. I saw that too. He did that, and I'm like, didn't that crinkle? Like, but then I'm doing my research, and so on the research it said no, it wasn't his chest. Then I did a Google search to be like, wait a minute, because I've heard this. Nicholas Meyer on the director's cut audio commentary said that he was in shape and that was his chest. And it's like awesome. So
like even for his age and stuff, I mean, even at
Mhm.
that age, I think even wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and stuff, you can see the little bit of sag in their chest or whatever, and he's looking like that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's good. Now on with the show.
The wonders of the universe, the dangers of space, the challenge of the unknown, the courage of a warrior, the vengeance of a madman. Kill him. The seed of new life, the hand of death, the plan of a genius, the wrath of Khan. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, rated PG.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982. The plot: with the assistance of the Enterprise crew, Admiral Kirk must stop an old nemesis, Khan Noonien Singh, from using the life-generating Genesis device as the ultimate weapon. He's more after this guy because he wants revenge. Khan wants revenge on him, but yeah. Did you watch Space Seed? So we both watched Space Seed, right? Okay. See, your voice sometimes doesn't come out. I see you nod, your mouth moves, but I never hear anything come out. Chip said yes, he saw it. It was good, right? It was really good.
Yeah.
It was like one of the best.
Yep.
Next to
and I remember watching it
around the time. Yeah.
Because we had been talking about it or something, so I think we both watched it or something, I believe. But so I'm sitting here watching it going, I was expecting like not to remember half of it, and I was like, I remember this whole thing. I was like, oh, okay. So
the only part I didn't like in a Kirk way is that Kirk had to be saved from the machine. Normally Kirk's smart, like Corbinite maneuver, which is around that time, around there, that one that I've told you with Clint Howard in it. And he's playing chess with him. He's basically like, you can try to take all of our information out of the ship, but when you do, it's going to blow your ship up because it's a virus. And he's like, no, you're bluffing. Go ahead, then take all our information. He's like, wait a minute. Something that I did say on Space Seed, so it's episode 22, season 1, 1967. What was interesting was he says, like, can I see the schematics of your ship? Which in a way you're like, okay, but also you're like, that's dangerous when it comes to later. like you're still in that same ship and he knows all the shit that you can do,
Well, and that was kind of the iffy part of that episode, was the fact that they already kind of knew enough about him to know not to give him that information.
Mm-hmm.
Like they should have known that for that to be the first thing he asks for, to be a huge red flag. So it's very much a Kirk, you're a dumbass.
Yeah.
That part.
In a way, though, you're like, I get it. Like everybody, you can watch Space Seed on Paramount Plus. The thing with that was I liked it because you are not knowing, just like them in a way, although with Federation, with the rules, like Savick will say in this movie, like there's rules. I'm sure there's a rule, like you don't just give all your shit to the guy. If he wants an owner's manual for an iPhone 10, you give it to him, but you don't give him the fucking how to operate your ship.
Second thing that I didn't like was how he was towards the girl, how Khan was. It was very like, hand this guy a wife beater. The way he's treating her, dominating and manipulating her and messing with her to get her on his side, kind of a thing. I was like, this is psychotic.
And that's the thing that got to him in the movie too, where his ego has gotten to him. He's not only, it's like, I think I've explained it years ago, maybe a year ago, there was a coup in I forget what country, and the military guy was like, I'm taking control and we're going to have a meeting and we're going to figure out who should now take control. But for now, I'm going to take control. And everybody's like, you can't trust this guy. He's going to fucking be like, I'm the leader, and he's going to have a big head and be like, I'm the guy now. But it wasn't. He was a military guy who was like, I'm just here to hold this place until somebody comes on. But everybody was worried his ego would get big and he'd be like, and that's what with Khan is like, I'm big, strong, genetically engineered. I can fuck shit up. I'm the best of the best. Like, you're all beneath me. And even with her, that's funny in the movie we'll get to, but he says, you killed my wife. Like, my wife died. And that was, I believe, who he ended up marrying. But she's like intrigued because she's like a anthropologist, like a historian of people. And she likes that. And then, but also like intrigued because he's got this charisma that, he's got a little ponytail. He's badass.
Well, and the thing was to me is I had this very much weird kind of cool, because it wasn't really portrayed this way in the X-Men movie, but the way Magneto was portrayed in the writing of Chris Claremont was very much this Khan type person, where we are Homo superior, not Homo sapien, and that we are the evolution of humans and we are better than them, so we should not let them treat us the way they do, and that's why he created the Brotherhood.
Well, and
so
that,
it was very much like that kind of a feel. I was like, that was kind of cool. But
yeah, and that's what was cool also with the third one, even though nobody likes the third X-Men movie, the original, was that you could also see layers of almost like Star Trek was back then. It was like, we're going to tell you something, but it's going to be subtle, kind of, it's going to be in your face, but it's going to be subtle where you don't even realize it. So you got Kirk kissing Uhura. That's just a thing of like, here's our show. The biggest thing was, it's an interracial kiss on national television that we can get away with because these are two characters kissing, like, haha, we got you underneath the table. You didn't realize, like, you just got your balls tickled. Is that how that goes? So
I think I'd realize that.
But
yeah,
you might not have to check under the table. You just be like, hey, I got my balls tickled. But that's what's cool with, so X-Men, the third X-Men was really not only Magneto, but played by Ian McKellen, a gay man. Now you're like, oh, this is like gay and straight people fighting. And then the other group, like, it's amazing, and then, it's pretty cool. But anyway, so Space Seed, finish this out by, so Chekhov was not on the show. So people complained, was not on Space Seed. He didn't come on, I think, till season 2. So people are like, how does Chekhov know Khan in Wrath of Khan? So they retroconned it later in like a comic book and in a novelization or a book. And this is what I subscribe to. So one of the stories is that Chekhov was like working below deck, like working in some other decks, working his way up. And so they said, go take Khan down to the planet. And he was the one that transported him. That was one of the stories. They had him transport him down to the planet with some other guys, transport the 70 people. And that's how he knows him. My thing also, though, was, so at first I'm like, no, he could have just read the records of the Enterprise. What has it been into? How good is Kirk? Blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden he goes, I would recognize your face anywhere. And you're like, oh shit, now you just blew it up. But I want to believe that, yes, Chekhov either was working below decks when he took over and he knows him or whatever. So very cool. But yes, or that he transported him. That's cool. So stars William Shatner as Kirk, Leonard Nimoy as Spock, DeForest Kelley as McCoy. Some people know him as the Doctor. James Doohan as Scotty, Walter Koenig as Chekhov. So I've been waiting forever to say this. Boner from Growing Pains? That's Walter Koenig's son. Boner from Growing Pains, the actor, actually killed himself, hung himself at a park or something. Rest in peace, Boner. George Takei as Sulu, Nichelle Nichols as Uhura, Kirstie Alley as Savick, Paul Winfield. I was going to leave him out, but Paul Winfield is Clark Terrell, Captain Clark Terrell. I like Paul Winfield. I think I talked about this when we had Paul Winfield on some other movie that we did, was the first Malcolm X movie Martin Luther King movie that I saw was him playing Martin Luther King. And it was really good. It's like a TV movie. And that really, he just stuck with me because he did really good in it. And that's why Nicholas Meyer chose him, because he was like, He's like, I like that, not because of Martin Luther King, but he was like, I want this guy. He's going to do good. And he did. He said he made it more believable. The scene with the eels, he goes, it's kind of weird, but he goes, he brings grounding to it, you know. And BB Besh as Dr. Carol Marcus, Merritt Buttrick as Dr. David Marcus. So Merritt Buttrick, he died of AIDS in 1989. Like it's it was sad. And Ricardo Montalban as Khan.
You remember where he started from, right?
I saw a video on the AIDS Memorial Instagram website, and it has him dancing and singing, and it's either from Zap or something. He was in Zapped, I guess, and he was in some other stuff. What?
Him and what's her name from Sex and the City?
That's why they said something about Square Pegs. He was in Square Pegs. Maybe that's what it was, where he's dancing, because it looks 80s. Cool. Written by Harv Bennett and Jack B. Sowards. Came up with the story. Jack B. Sowards wrote the screenplay. So Jack B. Sowards was from the original series, like he had written for them before.
Oh, wow.
So
That's awesome.
So Harv Bennett was like, oh, okay, like let me get this guy. And Nicholas Meyer and Samuel A. Peoples went uncredited in the rewrites, and Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek. So Harv Bennett, a new Paramount television producer, was made producer for the next Star Trek film. According to Bennett, he was called in front of a group, including Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner, and asked if he thought he could make a better film than the motion picture, than the first Star Trek, which Bennett confessed he found really boring. When Bennett replied in the affirmative, Charles Bluedorn asked, can you make it for less than $45 fucking million? Bennett replied that where I come from, I can make 5 movies for that. Bennett realized he faced a serious challenge in developing the new Star Trek film, partly due to his never having seen the television series. So not only Nicholas Meyer, but him too. Watching the episodes of the show convinced Bennett that what the first picture lacked was a real villain. After seeing the episode Space Seed, he decided that the character of Khan Noonien Singh was the perfect enemy for the new film. Bennett selected Robert Sallin, a director of television commercials and a college friend, to produce the film. Sallin's job would be to produce Star Trek II quickly and cheaply. Bennett hired Michael Miner as art director to shape the direction of the film. And it's directed by Nicholas Meyer. So here's what's cool. Now we're going to get into recasted, but I don't know if I guess I've written this down. Okay, we'll get to this in a minute. It's really cool the way this was written and the way you see sometimes in films, especially now, where it's like, we don't have a finished script. We're working on it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think The Fugitive was kind of that way. Like, it was always rewrites, and sometimes it hinders the film and sometimes it makes it better.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got casted. Okay. Are you going to go first or me go first again?
Always go first.
All right. Kirk, Timothy Oliphant.
Nice.
Spock, Rami Malek.
Nice.
Because he's weird and he could play that. McCoy, Jeremy Renner. Because he's funny. Could be kind of. Scotty, Ewan McGregor. I know he's older, but he could be, you know. James Doohan's got like gray hair. Everybody else is like not gray hair. Uhura, Rosario Dawson. I know she's older. She's the only actress that I could think that I really like that could be in that. Sulu, Mike Moe. Remember Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Chekhov, Emil Hirsch. I think he'd be good. I think he could do the thing. And Khan, Javier Bardem. So what do you have to say about those choices, first of all?
I like it because they all work together. They all complement. Yeah. That's the hard part about this, is making sure everything.
Well, and the other really hard thing is you already had this new Star Trek that came out that you're like, they kind of nailed it. Like, how do I do better than that? Like, I can't, but here's some names.
Yes.
So, okay, what do you got?
All right, Kirk. I have Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. I like it.
Spock. I have Eddie Redmayne.
Cool. Okay, yeah. I like that a lot.
Boy, I have Andrew Garfield.
Cool. Yes. I almost thought you were
Scotty.
going to say Andrew Dice Clay. He might be a good. Damn it, Jim. Let me smoke a cigarette. Dead.
Scotty, we have James McAvoy.
Cool. Good. I love McAvoy. Fucking Split. He's fucking amazing. Like he should have won an Oscar. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And he wouldn't have to do a voice. Like he would just use his actual.
Yeah, that's why I chose Ewan McGregor, because I was like, who's Scottish? Yeah.
Ahura, I have Journey Smollett. Do you know who that is?
Is that person that got in trouble that said that they got?
No, that's a guy.
Oh,
This is a
okay.
girl. Journey Smollett. Yeah, she played Black Canary in the Birds of
In the
Prey.
movie? Oh yeah, she was awesome. I love her.
And she was I think she was like a little girl that was on Full House. She was friends with one of the girls or something.
Oh,
That was her
cool.
first back in the day. Chekhov, I have Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Cool. Levitt.
Levitt.
Yeah. Cool. That's
And
good.
Khan.
You missed Sulu.
Did I?
Yeah.
Ah, crap.
Did you not write?
Sulu, I had it written down on another piece of paper because I updated everything. Oh, Sulu, I have Harry Shum Jr.
Which is?
He was from Glee and from Crazy Rich Asian, I guess, show. I knew him from Glee.
Not
and
the
from-
main guy though.
No.
From Crazy Rich Agent. Okay. All
and
right.
Khan, I have Gerard Butler
Interesting.
because I could see him being totally insane to want to kill Kirk.
Yeah. There's a new movie that is out to rent now. It's called Cop Shop.
Mhm.
And it's by Joe Carnahan, who did like Smoking Aces. And it seems like Smoking Aces style. Like he went back to that style. He also did the 18 movie. But those are good choices. I like those. I like both of our movies. Let's go make them. Let's call some people.
I'm hoping that maybe, you know, that somebody is going to come in and listen to this and go, hey, we should get these guys to cast our stuff. What the hell?
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
good.
So I talked last week. How did this movie come into your life? I believe I saw it in the theater, and I was like I said, you and I watched that Star Trek movie. I realized this the other day when I was thinking about the first Star Trek movie. You and I in the back of I swear it was a station wagon.
Yeah.
In the back of the station wagon, bored to death on this movie.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, wow. Like then I started thinking that we're 3 years apart. So that means in 1980 that I was 9 and you were 6. So you definitely did not give a shit about this movie.
Yep.
I was like, I always think like, oh yeah, we were right. Because we're right about the same. But when you hit that, you're like, oh my God, he was 6. I was 9. Yeah. We were kids who were like, where's
this came out in 82, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't much.
Right. So I was 11.
8.
Yeah. Yeah. But that it had the action in it and all that. And
that's what I'm wondering though. I don't remember because I mean my dad was the Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing is I don't remember whether I saw it in the theater, which I know my dad would have been like, let's go, because he loved the original series. So I had to have seen it at least in the drive-in again or in the theater.
Yeah.
But I don't know when it really made sense, like really hit me. Like at what age? The many times that I've watched it because of my father.
Yeah. It had to have been like with me too. Like I was, 11. So it hit me, but you don't get all the intricacies of him with his back to the screen, like talking like, hang on, I'm getting it for you now, Khan. Like 1 second, it's on its way. So good. Yes, I agree. Listener opinions. Are you ready for that?
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it! Opinions vary.
Mike Millard, 2017, friend of ours, wrote, "That was my favorite Star Trek movie." Then he added, "Would have been better if Tattoo played a small role."
He would have definitely played
a small role. Yeah. How dare you? Alan BMX 123 wrote, "Best Star Trek movie. I enjoy all of them, but this is the best." Chef Haas 72 wrote, "They really scraped the surface on the topic of what humanity's ability to create something technologically advanced, which can wreak as much havoc as it can help benefit the universe when in wrong hands. That alone could have been a movie in itself. Khan's overwhelming misplaced lust for revenge on Kirk has been brewing for 15 years at this point and made for one of the best science fiction films ever. One of the most underappreciated performances by any actor. Ricardo Montalban really deserved at least an Oscar nod for his portrayal of Khan." And then he gave a Spock hand emoji. Joe Dusick, PhD JD, wrote in capital, "Great drama, great science fiction. Even if you remove the Star Trek mythology, this movie could stand alone as just a damn good film." The_bat_grams wrote, "Terrific Star Trek, great science fiction, immensely quotable, cracking score, kicked off a great trilogy too. LLAP," I don't know what that means, and then a Spock hand emoji. Live long and prosper. That's what LLAP means. Now I got it. So yeah, Chip and I agree. I don't know about anybody else. The trilogy starting here, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and Voyage Home is great. Reviews _from_the_bunker, which we had last week, wrote, "Loved it." Jim Robbins 1973 wrote, "One of the best Star Trek movies ever made, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Commander Chekhov has a major role in the movie, and Ricardo Montalban reprises his role as Khan." This guy, I think it's your dad from the afterlife, because he's a big fan because of his name. Romulan Wolf 77 wrote, "Great movie, my favorite, but I could never understand this poster with the Enterprise firing on the Regula 1 space station. All the other posters I've liked for the movie, but this one I can never understand it." So I said that you and I would discuss it. I think either in the rewrites, it was going to be that, or that they wanted you to be scared for the regular one. So when they're both trying to come to the regular one, you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen? So.
I think it's kind of the same situation that McFarlane was in when he was doing Spider-Man. They would give him information on what was going to be put into a book or whatever, and they needed the production of the cover done right away to promote it. And so they thought that in this, I forget what the name of the actual books were, but it was it had to do with Captain America, Silver Sable, Red Skull, and all that. Like it was a big spy kind of a situation.
Right.
But at one point, they basically told him that Sabretooth was going to be like one of the secret bad guy type things. So he did a full cover of Sabretooth that they promoted for a book, and Sabretooth never showed up.
Oh, wow. That must be a rare, must be expensive comic to own.
So I'm thinking that's probably what it was. They gave the artist, the painter, limited information for what their plans were. And then they turned around and went, nope, that's not happening. Because maybe at one point, Khan was actually going to take over the Enterprise.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of thinking. But, and you know what else? I don't know if I'll have it in the facts. So when they gave a guy the Reliant to draw, they when they took it, they were like, okay, great. But they had the paper upside down. So the Reliant should look like the Enterprise, like upside down with the saucer on top. And but they had it upside, so they made it the way it is. Like, it's like, oh shit.
That looks cool.
Yeah, exactly. Just Me 12839 wrote, "Still the best Star Trek movie. Live long and prosper." Spock hand emoji and a heart emoji. PJC 135 wrote, "Still for me the best Trek film, no matter how many times I've seen it. Still gets me." Spock hand emoji. M3Cha_Weeb. So Matcha, anyway, wrote Khan. Axel Zesny wrote best soundtrack, smiley face and heart eye emoji. Motorstrom 23, a friend of mine, Michael, wrote Khan and with a bunch of exclamations. Royal 1200 Electric, Colleen, our friend over there, wrote hands down the best Star Trek film ever, never to be repeated. Being James Bond wrote brilliant with 3 exclamations. Dogs and Steel, Sean Hansen, wrote one of the first movies I remember seeing in the theater. Will always be a favorite because of that. So Sean's your age. So it's like, yeah, that would be big. Brothers in Armchairs podcast wrote Khan in all caps. So, and then we'll finish out with Brant Dodson wrote Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan's not only the best Star Trek movie, it's one of the greatest sci-fi films ever made. No other Trek movie comes even close to achieving its greatness. The costumes may be dated, but the writing and direction are top-notch, and Shatner is at his absolute best here. It has one of the greatest screen villains ever, plus it's got a classic 1980s film score. The grand, majestic music is full of inspiration and wonder. Wrath of Khan is undeniably a product of the early 80s, yet at the same time, it still holds up. Spoilers, it also has one of the greatest death scenes in cinematic history. Spock's sacrifice is so important to this film and to the character, it's a shame that producers brought him back to life for the next film, reducing both his death and the climax of the movie to absolute meaninglessness. All because a bunch of nerds with flimsy grasps on reality couldn't cope with the loss of a fictional character. Such a waste and such a slap in the face to Leonard Nimoy's performance. This movie is a must-see for any film enthusiast. I give it 4.5 hearts. It's so good that I forgive its shortcomings. Exactly why did Khan want the Genesis device anyway? It's never fully explained. So this part, first of all, we know how nerds are back then and maybe now. But even back then, you kill Jason Todd, people go fucking nuts. You kill, and then Kirk or Spock. So they had a thing where they were like, I think I get to it in the stuff. But so Spock was like, and Leonard Nimoy's like, I'm not coming back. Forget it. And they're like, come on. So they tell him, he's like, if I can have a great death scene, then okay. So they're like, okay. So then that gets leaked, like the script. And they say what happened with the script. So Gene Roddenberry did so horrible with that first movie. They pushed him, as William Shatner said, upstairs to be, you're going to be executive producer where you just make money, but you're not going to be involved. And they said he might have released the script. He might have been the leak of the script to be like, fuck you guys. And when people found out that Spock died, they were like, what the fuck? So Nicholas Meyer's like, I'm going to have him die in the first 5 minutes. And then people think, oh, that's what it was. And then it'll, because he was going to do like Janet Leigh and have that happen. And then he like does it. So you're like, oh shit, Spock didn't die. Okay. And then Spock dies. And the Genesis thing, I think that was Khan, of course, thinking like, I can make a new world and I can, like he said in Space Seed, he's talking about ruling and like, and even on that planet, at the end, he's like, you ever read Milton? And Shatner's like, yes. And he goes, okay. And then he sends him, and then Spock or whoever goes, what did he mean? And he goes, he meant he'd rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. And you're like, oh, so I think he wanted to make another world, populate that, overcome that, be the leader, and then go and do all these planets, but then again, there's only 5 of you now, that's the other thing. He said 20 people died from this eel and he had 70. Like what happened to the others? But I guess they just died of old age or whatever.
Right. No, the thing I was thinking of is because it's Khan.
Yeah.
And because they had to leave Earth, that it's very much a possibility that he was going to get revenge on Kirk first.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was probably going to use the Genesis on Earth to just wipe out everybody. And then
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes
That would have
because
been full revenge.
even in there to set you up for Spock. I think it was Spock, whoever it was saying, like the Genesis, like what'll it do if there's living things? It'll kill them, but it'll bring life to a dead planet, but to a live planet, it'll kill. So yeah. Yes, that's very good. I like that one, Chip.
But with what he was saying,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the fact that he sacrificed himself and then they kind of made it meaningless
Mm-hmm.
by bringing him back to life in the next movie,
Mm-hmm.
that was something I thought about when I was watching the movie today. Yeah, I still teared up.
Yeah.
Even knowing that he's coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I mean, on my own personal level, it's because of my father. I was thinking of my father at the same time. But
yeah.
But that was the thing, is I'm sitting here going, it's crazy how it hits you, that performance,
Mm-hmm.
the whole situation, even when you know that the search for Spock is coming next.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about it though also was that you got 2 years until the next movie comes out. So you're sitting there going, oh fuck, like I saw the stuff growing and his thing there. Is he alive? Is he dead? You don't know. It's an ambiguous ending until Search for Spock. Then you start being like, oh shit, they're going to look for him. And that whole thing was good. You know, number 4 may be too humorous, but it's still good. It all works out great. And the other thing, so William Shatner was like, we should have an opaque screen where you only see Spock's shadow. And he, first of all, he's like, we should be face to face, you know, in person. And they're like, no, we're going to put a thing up there. He's like, we'll make it like a shadow. So I just see a shadow and we're talking. And they're like, no, we're going to have a piece of glass translucent where you see both of you. And that worked out so much better. It wouldn't have been as powerful with just an opaque thing of shadows. But yes, I agree that it's still powerful no matter what. And that's what they tried to do in the Star Trek Into the Darkness, where first of all, you know, it's about Khan because you've heard all the stories. It comes out, you're like, okay. So when Benedict Cumberbatch slow pushing and he goes, I'm Khan, and you're like, yeah, we know, like, don't give me drama. And then when they flip it, and also you had worse, like this one laid out, like some movies lay it out in an expositional way where you don't kind of realize it's just a conversation. This Into Darkness was, oh, these tribbles, they seem to, they're just life. They're full of life. Like no matter what, you can't kill them. They're full of life. And then all of a sudden, oh, how did you save Kirk? Oh, we gave him put a tribble in his heart or something, you know? So it's like, you know, it's like, oh my God, like, come on. And so that wasn't sad when Kirk was dying. It's also the thing of in the movie, even if you didn't watch the original series, you know that these guys have been through, not only the actors, but say the crew have been through this extraordinary journey through the stars forever, and they're really close. And that's what was cool too, was when they're all not wanting to talk in the space seed, and he's like, I'm going to kill each one of you until somebody, and they're like, no, we're full on. So anyway, okay, so Harve Bennett wrote the film's original outline, which, like I said, Jack B. Sowards developed into a full script. Meyer completed the final script in 12 days without accepting a writing credit. Meyer's approach evoked the swashbuckling atmosphere of the original series, a theme reinforced by James Horner's musical score. Leonard Nimoy had not intended, like I said, to return to the role, but was enticed back on the promise that his character would be given a dramatic death scene. Negative test audience reaction to Spock's death led to significant revisions of the ending over Meyer's objection. So he might have even been objected to where they're going with the next film. Bennett wrote his first film treatment in November 1980. This is where it comes with all the different stories. In his version, titled The War of Generations, Kirk investigates a rebellion on a distant world and discovers that his son is the leader of the rebels. Khan is the mastermind behind the plot, and Kirk and son join forces to defeat the tyrant. So that'd be cool. Bennett then hired Jack B. Sowards, an avid Star Trek fan, Oh, he wasn't a writer. He was a Star Trek fan. To turn his outline into a filmable script. Sowards wrote an initial script before a writer's strike in 81. Sowards' draft, the Omega Syndrome, involved the theft of a Federation's ultimate weapon, the Omega system. Sowards was concerned that his weapon was too negative, and Bennett wanted something more uplifting. And as fundamental in the 23rd century as recombinant DNA is in our time, Miner suggested to Bennett that the device be turned into a terraforming tool instead. At the story conference the next day, Bennett hugged Miner and declared that he had saved Star Trek. In recognition of the biblical power of the weapon, Sowards renamed the Omega system to the Genesis device. So this is where also in the behind the scenes stuff is they had a thing with the Genesis device. They had a guy named Savick who was like on the ship, and they had Spock dying, and they had all these things. And when Nicholas Meyer went to write his in 12 days, he was like, hey, everybody who's read the script and who's involved in it, let me know what's your favorite part of each script. So people are like, oh, I like that Savick character. Okay. I like that Genesis device. Okay. I like that Spock dying thing. I like the warp drive go. Okay. And he put that all into a thing. And here's what else came up that I don't get this. I always imagine Star Trek as naval. Their permission to come aboard, like all that stuff. But they said it wasn't naval until Nicholas Meyer said, we're going to make it naval. So we're going to have their outfits kind of naval a little bit. We're like a naval outfit. We're going to have all this, in Kirk's house apartment, he's got the bell, he's got all that stuff.
And you got to think about it though. The reason why you see it that way is because of this movie. Because if you think about the older stuff before, it was not that way. It didn't look that way.
But that's how I always imagine it, I think. But it might be because of this film. But I always imagine even the original was like, because it seemed like that's what they would say. And the little whistle, it seemed like they'd always have the whistle in the old one. But now I have to rewatch it because maybe it's in my head where I imagine that I heard this, boom, the naval thing. So,
and to think about it also, I asked my father, I said, okay, so there's a woman in this part.
You said, how many times does she get fucked? And your dad was like, whoa, son, you're 6. The fuck?
No. And I'm like, why do they keep calling her Mister? And he said, that's a naval thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
you said that for Wrath of Khan, not for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I asked my dad about that, and he said, yeah, that's a naval thing.
And that's
so
what
I was like, okay. So when you look at this,
mm-hmm.
you gotta look at this in a weird way, because when you think
mm-hmm.
of Pirates of the Caribbean, when you're looking at the naval side of the battle going on when they're trying to stop pirates,
mm-hmm.
now you're looking at Khan as a pirate now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, and it makes you it makes me now rethink everything. Like you said, it's like when people go, oh, Psycho's too horrible. Like you see her be cut, you see all this. And people are like, you don't see anything. You see chocolate syrup go down the drain because it's a black and white movie, but you imagine the worst because that's what Hitchcock knew. Like it's worse to be in your mind to figure out, and that's with me thinking like, no, it's always been naval. And it could be like you said, no, you've seen it here. And now when you watch all the other stuff, you think naval, and it never was naval. And in fact, Nichelle Nichols, she was with Gene Roddenberry and like, no, it's not naval. Like, forget this, and fought against it, but got overruled and was like, nope. So, okay, you ready to discuss this film, Chip?
Yep.
All right. In 2285, Admiral James T. Kirk oversees a simulator session of Captain Spock's trainees. In the simulation, Lieutenant Savick commands a starship USS Enterprise on a rescue mission to save the crew of the damaged ship Kobayashi Maru, but it's attacked by Klingon cruisers and critically damaged. The simulation is a no-win scenario designed to test the character of Starfleet officers. Later, Dr. McCoy visits Kirk on his birthday. Seeing Kirk in low spirits due to his age, the doctor advises Kirk to get a new command instead of growing old behind a desk. So first of all, you know Star Trek more than you and Colleen. Kobayashi Maru, have they ever went back and told that story? Like, I was thinking it'd be cool to do a thing of like, where'd Kobayashi Maru come from? Well, it was a real thing that happened to one of our guys. Here it is, you know, and show that story. But also when they're like, it's a neutral zone, I'm like, well, then that's like sailing through waters that are like nobody's real waters, but but no, it's a neutral zone of like, you're not allowed in there. And, but I love that whole, I love how he tells her like it's to build character. She keeps trying to ask him until McCoy's finally like, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I overrode the system. Meanwhile, the Starship Reliant is on a mission to search for a lifeless planet to test the Genesis device, a technology designed to reorganize dead matter into habitable worlds. Reliant officers, Commander Pavel, did you know that was his name? Chekhov, and Captain Clark Terrell beam down to evaluate a planet they believe to be SETI Alpha 6. Sorry. Once there, they are captured by the genetically engineered, tyrant Khan Noonien Singh, explaining that they are on SETI Alpha 5. 15 years prior, Kirk exiled Khan and his fellow Supermen to SETI Alpha 5 after they attempted to take over his ship. The neighboring planet exploded, devastating the surface of SETI Alpha 5. So in a way, you can understand where, like he said, he never came back to check on us. He never did anything. Like, it should be in your logbooks, but also like, remember where he was like, I forget if it was that one or another one that I was watching where he's like, if we go, we got to go out of the way to go to the space station. Like, we're supposed to go this way. But it's that thing of like, yeah, there should be little things, especially something like that. Like, you're not supposed to interfere with other civilizations, but this is one that you put there. You should at least check on them. You know, not that you have to give them food, but maybe check. What do you think? What are your laws on that? Check on them. Don't check on them.
I understand not checking on them just because it was made apparent that you have to survive.
Right. Yeah.
That
True.
you have to, like, he even turned to her when she said that she was going to join him and leave rather than face court-martial in Space Seed. Yeah. She turned to him and said she would join him, and he said that it'll be, you know, havoc on us at first because we have to hunt for food, we have to try and survive. And she said she would stay with him. So they were, like he said, they were driving at least for a little bit until the other planet exploded. And
and that's the thing where that's the thing where you can't control that. You're not going to move them now. Like, you tried to take, it's like pirates. Like, we're putting you on this island, survive or not. You tried to take my ship. Like, forget it. This is it. Like, you figure it out yourself. You're lucky that we didn't kill you. You know,
he already went into another direction anyway because of the fact that he was basically given a chance to rule this whole planet, basically.
Yeah.
And everything went sideways. So that's not Kirk's fault. But also at the same time, you have to think that this man, his wife died. That sends him on a totally different axis also of going a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So
he's like, I got nobody to beat up. Yeah.
Nobody to dominate except for this.
No, exactly. Well, and all of his people and that ego that fucks with his ego. Now you got 5 guys. You should be better, but you can't survive in certain elements, you know. Khan implants Chekhov and Terrell with indigenous eel larvae, which killed, he said, 20 of his followers, including his wife, that render them susceptible to mind control and uses them to capture Reliant. Learning of the Genesis device, Khan attacks Space Station Regular 1, and that was cool where they didn't have to show it. They just showed the aftermath of people hanging, being tied up, and you're just like, oh,
that's how you get it all done with $45 million.
Exactly. Yeah. How you gonna do it? Well, we'll do just like before, where you think this is what you saw. You think you saw bloody violence, but you didn't. They're just already dead. Learning of the Genesis device, Khan attacks Space Station Regular 1, where the device is being developed by Kirk's former lover, Dr. Carol Marcus, and their son, David. So we'll get to it now. Kirk assumes command of Enterprise after the ship deployed on a training cruise receives a distress call from Regular One. And I love that too, where he's like, we didn't do that. And she's like, I can only see your face. I can't hear you. It's like a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And
Like,
he's like,
what? Who did what?
yeah, he's like, I didn't. And so he's like, we got to go there. So then he takes over again, where you're like, okay, awesome. Although Spock and Savick, I like how Savick is like, take us out of harbor. She's like, okay. And like, he's like, it's everybody's first time, you know. Go ahead.
Well, and that was the coolest part about that. When you think about that, when they're coming in, when Kirk and the rest of the original crew are coming in, Spock's already on the ship waiting to meet them.
Yeah.
When they're coming in, first thing Kirk is saying is like, well, I'm glad you're here with us, Sulu, because I don't think these kids know how to drive or how to steer.
Yeah.
And then the first thing they do when they get on there is Spock says, hey, Savick, why don't you steer us out of here? And then McCoy looks at him and says, you want a sedative? And he's like, nope.
I didn't catch that, because the part that I was focused on was when he's like, it's good to see you. And McCoy's like, hello, like, me too. Like, what the fuck? I thought we were friends. I thought we were frenemies. And so yeah. And then also when she's pulling out and he's like, you want a tranquilizer? And McCoy's like, you want to and he's like, no, I'm good. Distress call from Regular One. En route, Enterprise is ambushed and crippled by Reliant. Khan offers to spare Kirk's crew if they relinquish all material related to Genesis. So this part was cool, where they don't know who's attacking them. And right away, I'm thinking, yeah, you put shields up if you're not sure. And then later he's like, I was stupid. I should have, Kirk kind of admits, like, I should have. But then the part where he's like, when he's buying for time, Kirk instead stalls for time and remotely lowers Reliance shields. Like, that part was so cool when he's like, Spock, just nod, like I'm talking to you. And he's like, can you find the code? And then Spock walks over and he's like, the code is this. And Savik's putting it into the system. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay. And then all of a sudden you think it's Khan's son, but maybe Khan's whatever. And he's like, all the things went down. Like, the shields went down. What the hell?
Yeah, shields went down. Well, raise them.
Yeah. Enabling a counterattack. Khan is forced to retreat and effect repairs while Enterprise limps to Regular One. Kirk, McCoy, and Savick beam to the station to find Terrell and Chekhov alive, along with the slaughtered members of Marcus' team. They soon find Carol and David hiding Genesis deep inside the nearby planetoid. So what I liked also about that, where he's like, I'm looking for Dr. Marcus. And he's like, I'm Dr. Marcus. And then when she walked, he's like, oh my God, like he realizes like, oh shit, this is my son that I let her raise. Like, Khan, having used Terrell and Chekhov as spies, orders them to kill Kirk. Terrell resists the eel's influence and kills himself, while Chekhov collapses as the eel leaves his body. And that part was done cool, just as a film thing. Like, it slowly zoomed in and then went to like a dummy head of like an eel coming out, but it was done really cool.
It looked a little nicer this time. I think I remember watching it before, and it didn't look that great. And I think this time with I don't know if it was 4K,
the 4K
or what I was watching it looked a little bit better.
Yeah. Khan transports Genesis aboard the Reliant. You're like, fuck. And he even tells David, like, don't touch it, because David's hands will disappear, or he'll get stuck like Dwight Schultz. I still haven't watched that episode, but Dwight Schultz got stuck in like whatever, his mind or something got stuck in it. Kills himself. Khan transport, that. Intending to maroon Kirk on the lifeless planetoid, but is tricked by Kirk and Spock's coded arrangement. So this is the coolest part. Like I said, there's several cool parts in this. It's cool when he's talking to Spock and he's like, how long? He goes, and he says that in the beginning, like he says that little thing of like days could be hours and hours could be, and like, oh shit, they're given coded thing. And then he's like, so how long to repair? And he's like, it'll take us 6 hours. Any sooner than that? Well, maybe 2 hours, but we'll still have to limp wherever we're going. We can teleport you back, but barely. And he's like, okay, then I'll talk to you then. And then all of a sudden it's, or 2 days.
He kept bookending what he was saying. He kept bookending what he was saying with by the book. by the
Yeah.
book. He kept saying by the book over and over again. And it was like everybody's looking like, what does that mean? So you knew that he was doing code by doing that. So.
And then so he's like 2 days, but it's actually 2 hours. And then while they're talking, the only thing that I miss is that Kirk didn't look at his watch to realize 2 hours had gone by. He just flips open the thing. It's like Spock, but it's still fucking badass.
Yeah.
And so they're eating food and she's like, so we're stuck here and you've never faced a no-win scenario, have you? And he's like, no. And then he fucking, hey, Spock. And you're like, oh shit. So yeah, that was awesome. Kirk directs Enterprise into the nearby Mutara Nebula. Conditions inside the nebula render shields useless and compromise targeting systems, making Enterprise and Reliant evenly matched. Spock notes that Khan's tactics indicate inexperience in three-dimensional combat, which Kirk exploits to disable the Reliant. So they're like above and then below and like behind him and all that stuff was way cool. And that he's like, fire. And he's like, I can't target. He's like, just fire anyway. And Sulu's like, okay. And he's just, and it's going over. And even that other military thing of like, let him know we're here when Reliant first shoots at him and goes like by them. And you're like, okay, that wasn't meant to kill. That was meant to alert you like we're fucking here, like the military does.
Yeah. The thing that I liked about that is like first thing I thought of when he said the 3 dimensions and he made them lower the ship or whatever, I was thinking of like, this is the slowest Top Gun move ever.
Yeah, true. Yeah. We were inverted. Yeah. Make them invert and then flip them off and then just leave. Yeah, very true. Reliantly evenly matched. Mortally wounded, Khan activates Genesis. Though Kirk's crew detects the activation and attempts to move out of range, they will not be able to escape the nebula in time without the ship's inoperable warp drive. Spock goes to so there's some things in this movie that were funny, like when Scotty shows up with that dead guy. You're like, you couldn't have called it in. You got on the elevator with this guy, went all the way up just to be like, look at this dead body. Like, just call me and tell me that the guy's dead. And then the other one was, why couldn't you call? It was something else like that. Like, you couldn't just call us. But of course, it made better thing. But I did like where he's like, Scotty's like in tears. Like, is really good acting by James Doohan. But he's like, he wouldn't leave his post. Like, all the other trainees left and he did not leave. Like, you're like, oh shit. Like, this guy could have been a Kirk, but he wasn't. Spock goes to restore warp power in the engine room, which is flooded with radiation. When McCoy tries to prevent Spock's entry, Spock incapacitates him with a Vulcan nerve pinch and performs a mind meld, telling him to remember. Spock repairs the warp drive, and the Enterprise escapes the explosion, which forms a new planet. Before dying of radiation poisoning, Spock urges Kirk not to grieve, as his decision to sacrifice himself to save the ship's crew was a logical one. The movie's ending with Spock's friends hosting a space burial for Spock. The end.
See, and that's the thing, is when he did the remember thing,
yeah,
that was the doorway to the next movie.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
and that's what I've always said. Like, there was no
not knowing. Yeah.
They knew he was coming back. They knew they had a plan. It was
and from what I've heard, even though the crew, the guys that play on this movie, sometimes they say that William Shatner's a dick, but being as he's kind of the leader and has been their leader in a way, and in on camera and off camera, he kind of can say, McCoy was like, I don't want to come back. Like, fuck this, DeForest Kelly's like, no. And then he's like, give me a little better lines. And he made it the levity. He's like, I like that my levity kind of kept it, grounded and cool. And, but it was the same thing. Like, Spock didn't want to come back. He got, talked into coming back, and then is in it for 4 more films. Spock, DeForest Kelly, like everybody.
The whole point was, though, is that everybody got a little bit of something because Spock got to direct.
Yeah.
So it was part of that. It wasn't just
his name's Leonard Nimoy, nerd.
Well, yeah.
He's a real man. He's not a Vulcan.
But yeah, so it was like,
out of your Vulcan mind. That part was funny. Always.
When you're sitting there with a certain amount of money, And
Yeah.
they're basically saying we can't go over this $45 million or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but when they can sit there and go, well, how about you direct? How about you get to do something else? And when they get to do things like that, or when it starts making more money, and then they start throwing extra money because they're like, we need to keep doing this. Because when you think about this, these 3 movies from this point on, are the first movies that I remember to be connected in sync, like a Marvel universe.
Yes. Yeah, it was because this is before Back to the Future, because of 82, 84, and I think 86, or maybe 85. Maybe they rushed the 4th one. I forget. I'll have to look it up. But yes, it's amazing. It's cool that Leonard Nimoy directs. Which one did he direct? The second one? Yeah, no, the third one.
Third one. Yeah.
He did the third one, and then
And
Shatner did the 5th one.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad, but it's like they said about this movie, like people kind of disown the first one and just like start with this one, like it works. Critical response was positive, so I don't know how up to date this is, but review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes reports that 87% of 68 critics have given the film a positive review, recording an average score of 8 out of 10. After the lukewarm reaction to the first film, fan response to The Wrath of Khan was highly positive. The film's success was credited with renewing interest in the franchise. Mark Bernardin of Entertainment Weekly went further, calling The Wrath of Khan, quote, the film that, by most accounts, saved Star Trek as we know it. It is now considered one of the best films in the series. Pauline Kael of The New Yorker called the film wonderful, dumb fun. Gene Siskel gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4, calling it a flat-out winner, full of appealing characters in engaging relationships in a futuristic film that has a delightful, old-fashioned sense of majesty about its characters and the predicaments they got into. So, what else that they did with this was Nicholas Meyer was like, we're going to do like Horatio Hornblower. Like we're doing a naval thing, like make it fun like that and a bunch of adventure. And that's what I like about, and I'm not going to read the books because they seem like there's a lot of books and I don't know if I can get into naval history or whatever, but the Master and Commander, remember how cool the end of that was where you're like, awesome. And then at the end, the bad guy that they're sending away comes to and takes over the ship that he's on, and now he's going after the Master and Commander. He's going after Russell Crowe. It's awesome. But anyway, I give this movie 5 celluloid hearts. What do you give it?
Definitely
awesome.
Has to be 5. Because when you think about it, it isn't just that this saved Star Trek. Like you have to think in terms of nothing else would have came after that. No Next Generation. All the stuff that came after is like would have been moot. There'd be nothing there. It'd be gone. And it's weird though to think about this. Okay. Something as great as that created this, right? Something as mediocre and kind of, I mean, it was good at the time, I guess, but the J.J. Abrams stuff. If it wasn't for that, then the stuff that the badass shit that is on Paramount Plus only right now that's been coming would not have happened. Because those are based on that timeline that was created by what happened.
Oh, really?
In those movies, yes.
Oh, cool. It's like it's a thing of that the show was good when it came out, but also it might have been more heady people or sci-fi people loved it, but other people who regularly watched it was like, this rock is made of styrofoam. Like, what's going on? Like, am I supposed to get into it? But the other day after I watched Space Seed, I kept watching a couple more. Like they're good shows. And then for this one to come out and everybody be like, we're done, Spock's like, kill me. And then they're like, we got this idea. And then everybody else to be like, we're full on in. And remember, like you said, everybody having their thing. Sulu's like, I want my own ship. William Shatner's like, you'll get it in number 4 or 5, whatever. And then finally in 6, they're like, okay, you got your own ship. Now you're captain of, whatever. And Christian Slater's in it.
And the other thing about this too is that the fact that Leonard Nimoy got to direct made so much sense for him to do the full movie when he doesn't physically have to appear until the end.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like he doesn't actually have to show himself. So it's like I could direct this whole fucking thing.
And 3 had another one of those cool moments that, you know, with him and Christopher Lloyd, where he kind of tricks him and they both teleport, you know, do a teleport switch, and it's awesome. But then that's almost as awesome as Generations, where when they were like, we're gonna destroy the Enterprise, and the saucer came off. A lot of people were like, we didn't know the saucer could come off. I was like, that's fucking badass. But other people are like, oh, come on, all these years it hasn't come off, you know. And then I think 2 or 3 movies later, they had the saucer come off to do something, and it was like, but it's one of those where that was as cool, like, oh my God, they destroyed the Enterprise. And then at the end of that movie, when they're coming up over whatever, and Scotty's like, oh, I really don't like the Reliant, whatever it was going to be. And they go over that ship and they come to 1701A, and you're like, awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of felt, because they did.
I think it was the end of the 4th one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had the Romulan ship. Yeah.
I've always felt that because of them using time travel and stuff like that, that the coolest thing that they could have done with that saucer detaching was if they would have had to have went through time and flew that through the atmosphere of Earth to where it'd be like the first.
Oh, wow.
Saucer.
That would be the First Contact, would have been that. Oh, that's a great idea. Instead of what First Contact was, have it be just the saucer. Oh, that's brilliant, Chip. Go rewrite First Contact. Because what was First Contact? Was that their ship coming? Or no, it was the aliens, right? They didn't meet.
Vulcans came down. Vulcans were the first to meet up with Earth. That's the way that they were supposed to be. That the Vulcans were the first to come down and meet with the guy that made the first rocket or whatever that could.
And that was Spock's dad again. That was that guy, or was it?
I don't remember. I really just.
Yeah,
I didn't like those movies too much enough to watch them over and over again.
I bought all 10. Here's what's interesting with Wrath of Khan. I was like, should I start like part 3 right now? Like, should I watch 3 and 4? Should I go ahead and watch them all? Because since I bought them on iTunes, like I told you, $20 deal for all 10 movies. I was like, yes. And then I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should go through all of these, you know, and watch them all. But yeah.
Well, and my whole thing was I kind of wanted to go back and watch First Contact to find out if they stuck to the timeline, because they're saying that the Khan left in the 90s. In 96, he said in Khan, or Khan, he said that they left. Because they were only saying in the 90s, late 90s, early 90s. They kept saying it in that way on Space Seed, but it wasn't until Wrath of Khan that he said specifically in 96 was when they left.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here going, okay, but when was First Contact? Like when they were using, because they were saying that the ship left with those with the superior people or whatever, using, what did they say, nuclear technology?
Yeah.
And transistors and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so then could they have left before First Contact? But wouldn't the
spaceship,
the Vulcans have seen that ship take off and just keep going because they were in suspended animation? Like, wouldn't they have investigated if they were watching them so closely to wait for them to do, you know, space travel to where they could introduce themselves?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm kind of confused here.
It's also, but something that I don't know if I caught or in my head, I'm thinking, so did Khan and them get exiled from Earth, or did they say we're going to leave this planet because you guys suck? Because they had already taken over like 80% of the planet.
Because that's why they weren't in history, I think, because I think they left, I thought.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that because they had taken over like 80%. So there's no way nobody was fighting them. And they were like, we want better challenges. Let's go out in space.
Well, and that's why the logic was there when they were having that conversation. It was like, why would you leave them alive?
Mm-hmm.
If they caused this much havoc in the world, why would the people that defeated them leave them alive? That's not what it was. They got away from all, you know, and they got into the ship and took off.
Yeah. And then as Earthlings, they're like, we don't want to say that we created the super race. We'll just leave it. Because wasn't it Kirk said he had to dig pretty deep to find it? Like they didn't find it
Yeah, because they did. It was Spock that finally found the information saying that that many of them were unaccounted for, that they weren't in the history books.
Yeah. Everybody fucking check out Space Seed. Like, it's good. Brant, go watch Space Seed. It's really good. Okay, now we're on to Phil's film favorite of the week. So on HBO Max, there's a guy named Ridley Scott. Don't know if you know him. He made a movie called The Last Duel from 2021. So Matt Damon came to him and was like, I got this book. You did the movie called The Duelist, was your first movie in 1977. Why don't you do this movie called The Last Duel? Will be like one of your last movies you do. Like, that'd be cool. And Ridley Scott's like, okay. And so he did it. So it's King Charles VI declares that Knight Jean de Carouge settle his dispute with his squire by challenging him to a duel. So I don't think it's really a squire, used to be. So you got Adam Driver, Matt Damon, and Matt Damon's wife says that she was raped by Adam Driver, who's kind of used to be Matt Damon's squire. He's a friend, kind of a distant friend. He's kind of angry with him. The movie is in 3 chapters. Matt Damon's side of the story, Adam Driver's side of the story, and then her side of the story. So it's like Rashomon is that way. So it's really cool. And then her end of the story. And at the end, it kind of says like the truth. Like, you're like, oh, is this the truth? So it's really cool. What I liked about it, for one, was I wanted to see it because it's Ridley Scott and it looked interesting, but also I was like, I don't know, it's period. I'm not big into period films. And I'm watching it and the wife stuck with it the whole time. I thought for sure she'd be like, oh. And she's like, okay. And we watched it. I'm like, did you like it? She goes, yeah, it was good. I was like, yeah. So I gave it 4.5 hearts, 4 to 4.5, but I really liked it. It was really cool. And then what I was telling Chip before we recorded, so that's on HBO Max, was there's a movie called The Rescue. It's a documentary on Disney Plus, and it's about rescuing those Taiwanese soccer team that was like, just walk down this cave. Was like, cool. They would always go explore this cave. All of a sudden the monsoon hit early. It hit in June, at the end of June instead of July. So all of a sudden it floods the caves. So they're stuck in the caves and they can't get out. And it's like a 3-mile or a 3-hour swim to go get them. When they finally find them, after like 5 or 6 days, they find them. And you're like, oh shit. And they're like, we're hungry, we're whatever, but they were surviving on like the water from the river and stuff. And so then it's the thing of how to get them out, because you have to dive, you have to swim underwater with oxygen tanks and all that, scuba dive. So they can't train them to scuba dive because they already had these 3 adults that they tried to take that were like fighting them. They said it was like wrestling underwater. So it's really good when they figure out how to get them out. And just, you're almost on the edge of your seat, like, holy shit, like the difficulty of it and everything. Really cool. So check that out on Disney Plus, and check out Last Duel on HBO Max. And are you ready to tell what's coming?
For it.
Okay, we will be back on February 4th for...
Where somehow someone's gonna pay. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando. The odds are unbeatable, but he's unstoppable. Schwarzenegger, Commando, from 20th Century Fox. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without parent.
Starts tomorrow at selected theaters near you.
That's right. From 1985, it's Commando. Arnold Schwarzenegger kicking ass. You don't take Alyssa Milano from me. I'm going to go get her back, you son of a bitch. It's got the bad guy from Road Warrior in it. No mohawk. He's just got like, but for a long time, I thought that was William Smith, like this old actor from the 70s. So like late 70s, I was like, oh, that's William Smith. And then I'm like, no, why does this guy look familiar? And then you're like, oh shit, it's the guy from Road Warrior and Weird Science. Like, that's the guy, the mohawk guy. So very cool. He's the main bad guy, the main muscle to muscle that fight, and really cool. But it's a fun movie. So check it out. I'm going to watch the director's cut. Jason, I'll be on with Jason, not with Chip. And Jason from Popcorn Promises is going to watch the regular version. And then we're going to compare, or I'll do some research and find out why Why the director's? I think the director's cut has more blood. It's got like arms breaking and more blood and more violence.
I mean, it doesn't have more one-liners.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna keep all those in. They're gonna be like, "Come on, Arnold is dead tired. I lied." Like dropping the guy from Warriors off the cliff. Yeah, our guy from Walter Hill movies. Go ahead.
So I have a question.
Okay.
You're linking this with what movie?
Oh yeah, thank you. Taken.
Okay.
So there are movies where bad guys take somebody's daughter, and it's called a particular set of skills because both guys have a particular set of skills to get their daughter back. You don't steal a daughter from like Trump. Like he's not going to fight you. Like steal a daughter from somebody, a homeless guy. Don't do that, everybody. Okay.
Here's my question. You're doing Commando, but why aren't you setting it with True Lies? He steals his daughter.
Yeah, but that's like later on. These both start with daughters being taken.
Okay.
But yeah, and maybe we'll say, and because I've kind of done True Lies when Joe and I did James Cameron, but kind of not because we just like went through all the David Fincher and all the James Cameron.
Well, and the thing is for me, Alyssa Milano and the girl from True Lies, I forget her name right now. I had her on.
Yeah, something with an E. I don't know. Yeah,
but they both look almost like exactly alike, like at those ages and stuff. Like they were young.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're pretty young, and
she's a little older, but yeah, I could see.
Well,
that.
yeah, but they're like they could have been the same person, just a little bit older, kind of a thing. If it was like this is a sequel.
Yeah. Well, exactly. No, it's I really like Commando, and Taken was one. Like I said about certain scenes, like Commando, just
I seduced too. Thank
you. I was just about to tell you who it was. It's Tia Carrere was the daughter. It's Elisha Dushku. The good job, Chip. Without a computer.
I had to think like all I had to do is go into databanks and go. She was in Buffy. She was the second Slayer in Buffy. That was
the sister, right? She was a. Oh no, she wasn't the sister, right?
Trachtenberg was her sister.
Rachel Trachtenberg. The something for Taken that stuck with me was I just remember I was like, you hear about the movie, you see it. I went to see it, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, I got to buy this when it came out because it was right away action. It was a revenge. Like I love fucking revenge pictures. And it just had that whole thing of, him knowing certain things and him and it was brutal. And it was directed by Morelli. I think it's Pierre Morelli. And he also did The Incredible Hulk after Taken, the Ed Norton one. And that was really good. But anyway, so that'll be coming up. What do you got to say, Chip? Chip's looking up Rachel Trachtenberg.
I don't know. I was just looking up to see if the daughter from Taken was somebody that I knew.
Yeah, she was in Lost. Her name is familiar.
Maggie Grace, is that?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Is that the one? Hang on, I'm looking it up.
It's the second person on the list, so I figured that must be her.
Yes. Yeah, that's her, Kim.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was in yeah, that's her. Oh, she's in a little action movie. What I didn't like was 2 and 3 were not as good. She was in Lockout, which Jason and I saw. It's fucking Guy Pearce in a jail floating above the city. Fucking badass. Have you seen it? Futuristic.
So
it's really, it's a fun little action movie, and his character is fucking. You just love it. He's so. Guy Pearce, just his character right away. He's just making, being beat up while he's questioned. Just awesome.
There is one thing I want to say.
Uh-oh.
All these like rumors going around and all these speculation.
Hang on, I'm going to sing while you talk about rumors. How do rumors get started? Get started every day. It's a camisole. She's 6 feet tall. She brings you tea. Okay, go ahead.
all the stuff coming out that of the multiverse stuff going on with the new Doctor Strange, that they're, you know, speculating on who's going to show up and everything like that. All I care about is that it's badass, because I want Sam Raimi to be like, fuck you all, this shit is dope, I'm a badass director still, fuck you.
Yeah.
Because I want him to turn around and go, you know what, I'm gonna reboot Darkman.
Yeah,
I want him to come back and do Darkman and restart it.
I've been thinking about Darkman a lot lately because people have been talking about the Matrix. The new Matrix, I liked it. It was fine. Me and Colleen had a real good talk about it. But the thing with Matrix was like, what is the Matrix? And you didn't know. Darkman, that was their whole plot. Who is Darkman? And when I won those tickets to go see it before it was even released, and me and Joe are sitting in the theater like, what the fuck? And talk about taking Liam Neeson, like all fucking blown up with the bandages on, looks badass in a trench coat, and it's fun. And it was just awesome. And what I think Sam Raimi will do is he's, you know, is gonna make it dark and make it, you know, almost Evil Dead-ish, like funny, but also dark, but also, like I said, with the Spider-Man, that I see it as a Spider-Man with I mean, they did it in Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man Far From Home, where he just kept manipulating what he saw. So he thought that he was here, and then it would turn and he's in front of a train and all this cool stuff. Like I see that. I see Sam Raimi just being like, I'm going to really fucking twist it up.
Well, I think everybody's wondering what it's going to be like. And then Sam Raimi just announced, I guess, like yesterday or something like that, that he had watched the new Spider-Man all the way through and he loved it. And I was sitting here going, well, if you loved that, you probably know that yours is going to blow the shit out of that with all the people showing up that are multiverse people. Like he just knows, like we just did 6 days of reshoots and we're going to kick some ass. I didn't know if this was a real thing or not, but there was a rumor that Tom Cruise was actually going to be Tony Stark. And everybody was like we said about nerds, what the fuck? What are you? Yeah. It's like, yeah, give it to us. I don't care. Give it whatever. It's like you and I said also with Mel Gibson and with Tom Cruise. I don't care about their personal things. I like them on screen. I like them on film. I like their characters. So. Well, and this is the thing that happened. Apparently, it was released in some other country that wasn't supposed to, but it was connected to the Multiverse of Madness, and it was a new Avengers logo. So everybody was like, oh, fuck, because there may be a whole team of Avengers from different that show up.
Oh, coming to that one. Oh, wow.
To fight Wanda. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now there's a rumor. Everybody has all these theories, and it keeps popping up on comicbook.com. The theory of this and the theory of that. But the coolest theory, I didn't read through it, just read the line. But the idea that Wanda has already had already basically snapped the mutants out of existence, that we just don't remember them being there.
Oh, that's clever. And then then they can do X-Men under Disney. That's cool.
So it's going to be a thing where all of a sudden she's just like, you know, other X-Men are going to start coming through, or, you know, showing up. Older X-Men from the Fox are going to come through going, what did you do to all the mutants? And then she's going to be like, what? And, you know, and everybody's going to realize, wait, we never had mutants on this universe. And they're like, no, she made them disappear.
Yeah.
You don't remember them, just like nobody remembers Peter Parker being Spider-Man. Yeah. She did that.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, is Catherine Hahn going to get loose, and is she going to be in this movie, or, you know, is she just still locked down?
Heard that there were rumors that she's getting her own show on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
That she's getting her own spin-off show.
Yeah. I could see that, but sometimes you go, you know, it's almost like with Star Wars, you go slow down, but also you go, give me more. Like it's done well. With Marvel, like at first I'm like, I don't know, man, Hawkeye, like, come on. And then you watch Hawkeye and you're like, oh, that was fucking awesome. I loved it. So.
Well, and that's the thing, is they keep giving you, you're like, okay, is this one going to be all right? Is this going to be good? And then the next one comes and you watch it and you're like, fuck, Okay. What about the next one? Is that even,
Yeah.
you know, because even Loki, everybody is kind of wondering about Loki because it looked like they're hanging out in cubicles, bullshitting. What the fuck is going on here? And then all of a sudden it becomes amazing. You're like, okay. And I think that's the thing is that once Multiverse of Madness hits, all the gloves are off. So much shit is going to be happening that we're going to be like, holy fuck.
It's like the cartoon that What If? It's like that. Like everybody loves that. And if you can do that and realistic, you know, or whatever, like that was amazing. And even as a cartoon, like give me more of those. I love those. The animation of it was great. I love what's her name? Sister, Black Widow's sister. I love her character, like eating the mac and cheese. Fucking she's badass. But anyway, I could talk to you for hours, but we should probably wrap up the show. But that's the thing with Marvel, where you say, like, where you and I said, like, now I got to watch the Eternals. Okay, I watch the Eternals now, you know, and now, but every movie that comes out, you're like, is that connected in some way? Do I have to watch that now to see if Spider-Man shows up or, you know, whatever? So, yeah. But anyway, certain movies stick with you, Chip. They stay in your head and heart forever sometimes. So from all of us at My Cellular Heart, keep watching movies. What do you have to say, Chip? Live long and prosper.
That's what I was going to say. Live long and prosper.
All right. He's ending.
You green-blooded son of a bitch.
Wow. Are you out of your Vulcan mind? All right. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Explore the far reaches of the universe with the Starship Enterprise and Wendy's. Because right now, with the purchase of a Wendy's Fun Pack meal, you'll receive a free Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan movie poster. Imagine it. You get just the right size Wendy's hamburger, French fries, and soft drink or Frosty, plus this exciting color wall poster free. So beam yourself to Wendy's for a Fun Pack meal that's truly out of this world. But be careful. The Wrath of Khan awaits you.